is Rebecca Jones, aka Miss Informational. You are joining us for episode 6 of our podcast, and I am, of course, here today with the very lovely Dr. Cindy Banyai.
Hi, how's it going, Rebecca?
It's been a fun week.
Every week in Florida is another week where we learn the depths and depravity of all the assholes that are in charge here.
Yeah, and it's interesting to watch when they start eating their own. So I've been in the headlines a lot over the last week or so because I started publishing some of the information that had been trickling to me since last fall. And then the floodgates opened after the whole House Speaker election debacle in which Matt Gaetz was leading the charge of the Freedom Caucus to sabotage the election of the Speaker. Yeah. And of course, it was a whole thing. It was on January like 5th and 6th. And so there was this anniversary thing that obviously they were trying to distract from.
Sure.
There was a near physical brawl on the House floor. There was that video, and I don't know if we included it last time, but we're going to include it again if we didn't, or did, either way, because it's that enjoyable, of Tim Burchett, the representative from Tennessee, threatening Matt Gaetz in an uncomfortably close position next to his face. And Matt Gaetz looks like he's seen the ghost of Christmas future and suddenly goes to the bathroom, changes his pants, and then changes his vote. And then McCarthy is confirmed. But yeah, it's since that happened, I think they put on like the bat signal for Republican dirt to be disseminated across the masses. I'm not the only person that people are talking to. I know that because I've been contacted by other reporters from everything from Vice to the Washington Post about confirming things that they heard from one or two of my sources, but no one seems to have gotten the like 13 that current and former staffers that I've been speaking with this time. So I've been trying to verify it as quickly as I can while making sure it's accurate. We have a lot that I have basically a list of like 56 individual items I need to fact check. Wow. And so far, I think we've released 5 or 6. It takes time. There were photographs involved that I'm still not quite sure how to handle. I'm going to be speaking with one of my advisors from when I was at Syracuse in the journalism school about what the appropriate way to deal with this is. So that'll be a conversation we have to have. But last Friday or Thursday or Friday, Matt Gaetz started panic firing people in his office. And on Monday or Tuesday, he fired Levi, who's an accountant that was working in an accountant firm, but worked for they were a client. He spilled the beans about one of Matt Gaetz's donors doing some free kickbacks and got fired. And then Friday, I think it was, 2 staffers from the district were both fired. Both of them are veteran staff members for him. They've been there for years. And they're actually considering a potential lawsuit for wrongful termination. So there's a lot going on with the panic and the fear in Matt Gaetz's office. And I'm going to be on top of it every step of the way. And it's become a theme in my life that you don't fuck with my kids. Matt Gaetz had one of his staffers who at the time was on the GOP payroll, which of course is information you can access through the FEC because everyone that the Florida Republican Party pays as a staff employee is filed under their disclosures, and his name is there. Followed and stalked my son. He took photographs of him at several different venues, published one of them online and bullied him for his autism, which Matt Gaetz reshared both on Twitter and Facebook. Followed him to the bathroom once, which prompted us to call the police on him. Of course, did absolutely nothing. And then we had to go through the hearing on the restraining order in which the judge said basically, because I was a public figure, if what's being done to me is framed in a political context, then it can't be considered without legitimate purpose, which is what the stalking statute requires. However, the judge did scold Matt Gaetz and this person specifically. He called it propaganda. He said that it shouldn't happen, but I'm public, so my kids apparently are for a game. And now I'm going to take Matt Gaetz down. So, DeSantis, Gaetz, don't fuck with my kids. I'll come for you. I'm going to get you. But we had a huge breakthrough, at least for my sanity's sake, this week when an article from the Daily Beast came out that described just really the tip of the iceberg of what I've been telling people about on this podcast for 5 episodes now, publicly in interviews and of course on my Substack and during my campaign for 2 years, that Christina Pushaw, the registered foreign agent who previously was a state employee as Ron DeSantis's office press secretary. She was fired and had to go to his campaign in June after she was being investigated for failure to register as a foreign agent. So she belatedly registered and had to leave state office. Her 3 jobs, as we've said before, she's only had 3. The first one was running propaganda and disinformation for the now imprisoned and stripped of his citizenship former president of Georgia, Mikhail Saakashvili. I think I said that. I'm getting better with it. All these like Eastern European names are still tough for me. I'm a Nordic person. Eastern Europe, not my tongue doesn't want to do that. So after she left that job in late December of 2020, she came to Washington, D.C. And then for the next 4 months, her project was stalking, harassing, and trying to defame me. I had no idea who she was. I just thought she was this weirdo person who wrote 1 blog post ever and kept claiming she was writing stories, but she wasn't. She lied. And then after she was criminally charged with violating a restraining order I had to get to protect me from her, she got hired as DeSantis's press secretary. So those are her 3 jobs. And according to the Daily Beast and everything I've been telling you guys for years, she single-handedly does, in fact, run a massive Twitter bot army and disinformation campaign that's sole purpose is to promote Ron DeSantis and destroy his perceived enemies on social media. They use ruthless tactics. They create and plant stories that are false. They target and relentlessly harass and defame people who speak out against DeSantis, not just me. We've talked about Dr. Peter Hotez, who's the Nobel Prize nominated for medicine vaccine researcher and the head of Texas Children's Hospital's pediatric and tropical medicine departments. Nicest guy on the planet. So basically anybody speaks out for him, they harass them. They harass anyone who mentions them. They are able to evade blocks, which is something that, of course, Twitter safety could take care of and doesn't. And this one person, of course, in particular, has tweeted about me 150,000 times in less than 2 years. 150,000 times in less than 2 years. It's pretty pathetic. He's mentioned specifically in the article, but they do fail to mention his real identity, which is his name is Andrew McGimsey. He lives in Kokomo, Indiana. He's had like DUIs and public drunkenness charges. His dad was some kind of genius programmer who basically, I think it was something like developed the software that was used to map flight paths for air like practice across the whole country. So his dad was a genius programmer. This guy just seems like a washout who lives in his dad's basement now and just harasses people. But so yeah, they go over, the Daily Beast does, how the operation works, the fact that they are in fact getting paid, and they do get paid per tweet. So do not engage these people. They are getting paid every time you react to them, which I've been telling people for years as well. And of course they've been denying, but no, it's true. Now, they didn't get into some of the more nefarious and shady things, but they did raise questions about potential law violations in being paid as a political operative without disclosing that what you are doing is paid political work. So any person, and they don't file it with their FEC filings. They think that they're using a conduit or that they're money laundering in order to pay these people. They also give them perks like access to the inauguration parties. They hang out with Christina Pushaw apparently all day, and she just feeds them exactly what they're supposed to do. So it's highly coordinated, which of course I knew. I received a leaked copy, probably from one of the same sources that the Daily Beast spoke to, of the 30-page manual on how to attack me on Twitter. And it has specific breakdowns of if someone is a Black female, do this. If someone has like sympathetic to, Ukraine or something, do this. Feign loyalty always, because as we've discussed, that's one of the biggest tools in the arsenal of getting people's trust, is to make yourself seem like you're a member of the tribe. You're an ally who's coming to you not to cause harm or disarray, but out of concern to tell the truth. That's one of the most effective means of doing it. A bunch of dumbass Democrats in Florida fell for it and caused a bit of trouble in this year's election. Luckily, they didn't have any actual power at the voting booth, but still, it's pathetic that we have people who take Daily Mail articles from anonymous Twitter trolls and then decide to sabotage congressional campaigns and down ballot campaigns as well, because anybody who was in proximity to me was targeted as well. There was a network map of the people that I work with and talk to, and basically any person who's publicly seen as an ally of mine is relentlessly trolled, harassed, and stalked. That includes celebrities from Mark Ruffalo, who's been a huge supporter of mine for years, down to local people that they'll do that to. They had template texts that they would send if someone liked my page on Facebook. And it literally started with, I see that you liked Rebecca Jones's Facebook page. I just wanted to let you know that I used to believe her too, or I donated to this, or I totally was on board with her. And then I found out, and then links to far right media like Breitbart, the National Review, things like that. It's insane and it's effective.
Yeah.
But
So let me just say this.
by mainstream press.
So I wanted to just give everybody a little perspective on this too, because I've gotten caught in this drain sucking down into the cesspool of the Christina Pushaw and troll world on Twitter in particular. Twitter seems to be most effective, frankly. But yeah, and I noticed it because it was very strange. Anytime you would even tweet anything that said Rebecca Jones' name in it, they came from nowhere and they would attack you and they would just do all sorts of crazy comments and things like that. And I just thought it was very straight. Even before you and I had even met, I noticed that. And it's a very strange thing. And I noticed also the evasion of the blocks. It's so interesting that you said that, because I know that I blocked some of these people from my page, from my campaign page, from Big Mouth Media, frankly, and they still keep popping up. And I'm like, wait a second, I know I blocked them. So
it's called console access. So there's other people who have been much sleuthier in the Twitter tech realm than me, who there's ways to trace if an account holder has 5 or 6 accounts. Obviously, there's a lot of very easily publicly accessible data, like the date the account was created and how many times they've tweeted. So if you see something that was created last year and they have 15,000 tweets, that's not a real account. That's not an authentic account. But people who know how to manipulate the API and kind of dig further can trace all these multiple accounts back to a single person. The guy that I mentioned from Indiana runs a whole bunch of accounts. So does Cheryl Renaud. For some reason, she puts a ugly terrier dog in every single one of her profiles. It's not even hard at this point to spot you out. Rosie is one of hers.
Rosie,
yeah, the SoCal hippie or whatever. Dan Goldwasser's probably the only person. He's probably the craziest, but the only person out of all of them who uses his real name, but he also has multiple fake accounts, and they're not very good at hiding it because they're the accounts that are all tweeting each other at the exact same time. But yeah, so it's having console access make it impossible for you to block. So Twitter is one of the biggest things that the whistleblower talked about last summer, was how there's no development protection side of Twitter. There's no logging of who did what to what account or what service and when. So if you have a subcontract for Twitter privacy, like a lot of these organizations that are involved with these people do, you just get console access and you can delete accounts, block accounts, suspend accounts, do whatever you want. And a lot of these people in my troll network just magically become unblocked. Dan Goldwasser suddenly became unblocked earlier today for me, and I had to go through and block him again. You can't report these accounts either. I tried to, again, report the stalker account with the 150,000 tweets. And because they block you, you can't select their tweets to report, which means you can't move forward in the report. It's grayed out. You can't click next. So there's no way to actually even report people for targeted harassment if they block you and then harass you. It's bullshit. Twitter needs to fix it. But yeah, so that article outed a lot of those accounts I've been telling people about for years, that it is a paid operation. It's probably in violation of multiple campaign finance laws and political advertising laws. Christina Pushaw is the person who's behind it. So I told you so, I guess.
Yeah. I was like, I told you. Yeah.
It really was just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more there that I hope that somebody other than the Daily Beast, who has a notorious liberal bias, will investigate more.